I did join that particular marketing because I just wanted to lose weight after having a baby. I just wanted to fit back into my size 8 jeans, which was like this like big cool. I was looking at the jeans like I'm gonna fit into those jeans one day again. So it started with just that, but it then developed into something so much more because I then realized that it's no longer about the size of my jeans. It really is about how I feel. And when I started looking after my health physically, I then realized that it's great, but it still doesn't work until you start looking after your mindset as well. Looking after what you put in our bodies physically, the exercise side of things is great, but without having the mindset and without being genuinely happy inside, it's not going to work as well. So we have to have a combination of the two. And that's when I started coaching. I started reading lots of different books on personal development. And that's exactly how the whole coaching, and this was 2018. So this is where the whole coaching kind of journey started, really.
Hello and welcome to Meet Your Inspiration podcast with Meri and Rich. Here we're talking about inspiration, motivation, and empowerment. Our guests are ordinary people who became extraordinary, and with sharing their stories, we want to empower you to become the person you want to be and to go beyond your dreams.
Today we have our special guest, Katie. Katie runs a coaching business, which is really for mums and particularly dealing with guilt. I think that's something that maybe a lot of mums maybe have guilt, and it'd be quite interesting. So, Katie, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you. Wow, I mean, extraordinary. I probably wouldn't go that far as extraordinary, but thank you, Meri. So the mum guilt, it's something. There's different researches, and you type into Google, and it gives you lots of different statistics. But real life, to be honest, I've never met a mum that wouldn't feel guilt in some shape or form. And the thing is with guilt is we do, not just mums necessarily, as people, it's natural, we do feel guilt in different areas of life, in different shapes or forms. But what I've experienced personally is when I became a mum, it's just taken a whole new level. That was like, there was, I used to say that I have pretty much mastered the guilt, and I got to the point where I could actually make myself feel guilty over the fact that I was feeling guilty. It got to that kind of level. So yeah, we can.
It becomes a circle.
It becomes that vicious circle that can be sometimes a bit of a challenge to get out of, but we definitely can, And it's also understanding that, looking at the guilt from different views, and is it necessarily a bad thing, So it's also understanding that guilt doesn't necessarily always mean enemy. So it's that as well.
Yeah. It would be interesting to listen to the story and to find out how would this come to you, and you end up being, am I correct to say, mum's guilt and general life coach?
Yes. So it's a general life and mindset coaching, but yes, with the mum guilt twist inside of it.
Yes. But here, for first time, I think we've got a guest who's, I'm pretty sure will have a quite similar story like me, coming from different country. And I really want to hear your story. What is to come here, setbacks, and how did you manage to settle your life and to have your business nowadays?
Oh, wow. Yes. So it's actually a story that I don't think I've ever actually publicly shared. But so I came to England in 2004. So it's been, we're now just over 20 years. But it was one of those things that it wasn't necessarily a fully planned move. So it's not like I grew up thinking one day I'm going to get up and go and I'm going to set up a life in a new country. And to be honest with you, I was one of those kids, even as a teenager, that I've had so many friends near me, and they said, oh, I want to be a policeman. Oh, I want to be a fireman. I want to be this. I want to be a judge. I want to be a lawyer. And I was just one of those kids that I just didn't know what I wanted. I genuinely did not know if someone asked me, what's your dream job? What do you want to be doing? I couldn't tell. I loved singing along and lip sync. Is it lip sync miming? To having Madonna. Judge. I grew up with Madonna, Michael Jackson, and Roxette. So I remember I'd close myself in a bedroom, music blaring out loud, and not necessarily singing along to it, but just lip singing and doing my little dancing moves. But I don't think I actually wanted to be a singer. I just enjoyed it. But yeah, generally people ask me, what do you want to do? I don't know. One thing I was really good at, though, I've always loved learning. I've always loved reading. So I knew it was going to be, I was going to pursue the academic path. I just didn't know what was going to happen within that path. So how the schooling system works in Slovakia, or did at the time, is we actually started school. We had a preschool up to 7. So we started the actual school, primary school, at the age of 7, and we would be at the primary school for 8 years. So at 15, we would then start looking at moving forward to either different types of colleges or grammar schools or anything like that. So, and I was 14 and a half, and I still didn't know. So what do I do now?
Did you enjoy your school life?
I did and I didn't. I enjoyed the academic part. I wasn't necessarily what you call the popular girl. I was quite overweight. I struggled a lot with health issues. I was one of them poorly kids that was always excused from PE, on a chubbier side, wearing glasses, and not necessarily having a lot of friends, quite often bullied for my looks and everything. So I've decided that books became my best friends. So in that sense, my memories as from the school were more the academic side rather than the social side, if you like. But when I came to the end, I was like, well, still don't know what I actually want. So I thought, well, let me go to grammar school because that will buy me 4 more years. So I've got 4 more years to figure out what I need to do. So I went to grammar school, and then life really drastically changed there because I kind of gone from this really poorly kid to I've naturally through puberty lost a lot of weight. I've all of a sudden, majority of my health issues disappeared, again, probably through puberty. So I did find myself in that popular circle all of a sudden, and just like really weird experience. And 4 years went by, and I still didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was like, do you know what? I'm really good with numbers. I'm really good with maths. So I'm just going to do something with economics, with business. So I did my master's degree at business management, economics and business management. And I've had wonderful support from my family. They've always been supporting the academic side of things because in Slovakia, and it's probably, Meri, you probably experienced the same where you come from, that it was very much, in those days, it was very much, if you ever wanted to be successful, it would have to be through the academic stuff. It wasn't, it was very much that kind of couple of limiting boxes, I believe, So I was very fortunate that my family did push the academic side, and they were really supportive, and it was almost too supportive, if you like, because I found myself almost towards the end of my studies at uni, just after graduation, I found myself in a situation where I had this job waiting for me, and it was a fantastic job, don't get me wrong. And I could just see my whole life being planned out for me without me actually having any part in the say or saying it, how that's going to.
Did that come about from family, from sort of like friends and family, and say, oh, well, we've got a job for you, and this is where you can go?
So I because I was one of the fortunate people, because I was so academic and I really did love studying and reading, I managed to receive a red diploma with my studies, which some of you guys might not be familiar. It's more of the Slovakian style, is when people finish with certain type of grades throughout their studies, throughout the whole uni. It's the distinction, so it's having certain merits. So you then receive your red diploma saying you have not only graduated, but you have graduated as basically the top of your class because you had a certain average of grades throughout the whole of the studies. And that put me really in a great position where I actually was headhunted before I even left school, and also through connections from my granddad. He was a very powerful man in his day. He was a equivalent of director of Royal Mail for Slovakia, for the whole country.
Wow.
So he literally said to me, this is what we've got for you, amazing opportunity. And I didn't mean to be ungrateful, because it really was an amazing opportunity, but it just felt like somebody just made a plan, created my life for me. And I was like, there you go, this is your life, and off you go, and you can live it how we created it for you.
So did you go there?
No.
You didn't?
No,
Okay.
I did the unthinkable. And everybody thought I absolutely lost my marbles. Probably to a degree, but I just come to my mum and dad a week after I graduated, and I said, I'm not really too sure this is the life for me. And so, what do you mean? Like, what could possibly not be for you? It's like, I just really need to go out and experience the world of my own and decide what is actually it that I want from life, and how do I want it to look like, most importantly. So I said, I don't want to be ungrateful, but I really need to do this for myself. And of course, they didn't approve because they thought it was a really silly move. So I said to them, I said, well, what are you going to do? And I'm going to go to England, because I spent 4 months in England. The last summer of my studies at university, I spent 4 months in London, just traveling a little bit and earning a little bit of money. And, so I thought, I'll go to England. I'll improve my English, and I'll see if I can figure out what is it that I actually want in life. And they said, well, that's all grand, but we don't have the luxury of this. Like, who's going to pay for all of this? And we're not going to financially support you because we think it's a suicide. So I said, yeah, that's fine. I'll find a way. So I've gone and checked my bank account. Well, as you can imagine, as a student, there was a lot of partying, and it costs a bit of money, so there wasn't much left. So I was like, how am I going to make this work? So someone mentioned, well, why don't you go as an au pair, like a living nanny, because then that way you don't necessarily earn a lot of money, but at least you've got a roof over your head, you've got food on the table, so your basic needs are catered for. And so I thought, you know what, that sounds actually great. I love the sound of it. And I love children, so I was like, yes, that's what I'm going to do. So with the last £60 that I had left, I've booked a coach because I couldn't afford a flight, couldn't go on a plane. And that was it. Off I went, got on a bus. And that's the first time in my whole life ever I saw my dad cried, because they genuinely did not believe I was going to go through with it until I sat on that coach and they waved goodbye at me. To be fair, I did cry because I'm like, cool, I've done it now. I can't go back now. This is going to be...
That's a huge decision, isn't it? You're going on your own, on a bus, across Europe, across through the Czech Republic into Germany, and across thinking, where am I going? I'm on my own. Am I going to be okay? Because it's great right up until you decide to go.
Exactly that. It was such an exciting and amazing thing until that moment I actually stepped on the coach and I sat down. I was like... my chest just got so tight, and I was just like,
you haven't got your friend sitting here?
Literally no one. And I had my little disc man, they don't exist anymore, but I had my disc man to keep me company, making sure I've got enough batteries to see me through the 26-hour journey. And I just looked over at my family all standing there on a platform waving at me. My dad burst down into tears. I was like, oh my God, don't do this to me. I'm trying to be brave here, She'll be like, I'm all cool and everything. I was like, oh, this is like really, I don't actually know why I've done this. And for the first time, it felt like, possibly, could it be that they were right and I was making a big mistake? But by that point, my stubbornness said, no, I'm very stubborn. So I was like, and it was the pride, it was the ego, it's just, no, I can't get off now. It's too late. So that's how I ended up here. And
how did you find it when you first arrived? So did you go straight to a family?
So I because I was here the year before, I made a few friends in London. So I arrived, I believe, on Friday, and I spent the weekend in London with those friends. So a couple of days with the friends, and then on Sunday evening, I was picked up by the family that I started working for, and I started my job on Monday. So there was a little bit of a like, well, this is fun, this is lovely. And then when I was on my train from London to Rainham in Kent, because the au pair agency in Slovakia said, oh, you're going to be coming to Kent, it's a Garden of England. And I was so excited. And I got off the train in Rainham. And, I don't have anything against Rainham, but if someone paints you a certain picture and then you walk out of the train station in a slightly different part of the area, it's just like, I got out the train, I was like, I think I've got a wrong train ticket. So I don't know whether this is actually where I'm supposed to be. But yes, I did discover a lot later that it is really a beautiful place, Kent, including like Rainham, and But yeah, so it was the initial like, oh my God, what's this? This is not the dream they sold me. This is quite far from it.
Very often it's not.
But you know what? The moment I got picked up by the mum of the boys that I was looking after, literally within a few seconds, we bonded. There was something, I can't describe it, but that moment, she just put me at so much ease. And the beautiful thing that I was never felt, and I was never treated as someone who works for the family. From the moment I stepped into that car, from the moment I was picked up at the train station, I was treated as a member of the family.
Were you the first au pair that happened?
I believe so. Yes, yeah, and then
That probably also helped. So I imagine. So they didn't have
yes,
anything preconceived ideas.
I suppose yes. Actually, I never thought about it, but
They were probably thinking, actually, it's just like inviting a friend into the family.
yeah,
You're just going to be helping, and because you then become a fundamental part of the family.
yes. And the family. So of course, as you can imagine, when we were going through the with the agency in Slovakia, there were a couple of different options that I was presented with, and then we would then put the proposals to the family so they can say, is this the right fit or not? And they were a couple of other options, but Maria and the boys who I chose to put my proposal to, she was at the time actually a single mum, because I felt like I wanted to be somewhere where I felt like I could make a real difference. Because there were, of course, there were the other scale of families where I was offered a family that would regularly go. They would go on skiing holiday every winter. They would go to America every summer, and they would have a house with a swimming pool and a tennis court, and and it all sounded absolutely lovely. But I just felt like, am I just going from one comfort to the other comfort, and also not knowing how you're going to get treated with that kind of family? What's
very different.
Is the connection going to be the same? So for me, that was a no-brainer, and I think it was the best decision I've ever made. I funny enough, Maria actually, we're still very close. We have stayed very close friends. The boys are now in their 20s, engaged, getting married, but we have really become a family, and so that really made the transition for me coming here much, much easier. That really did make a big difference. But it wasn't easy. It was tough because back in the day, it wasn't, I didn't think I had WhatsApp. I think we were functioning through Skype. Most of the phones they were not the smartphones like they now. You could send a text message, and you could, if you paid extra, you could probably send a picture, but it wasn't like the video calls from your phones like it is now. So it was genuinely me once a week going to phone booth, calling my family, checking in how they're doing, and occasionally logging in on Maria's computer on Skype and do a video call. So I didn't really have I didn't see them as often and communicate with my family. And of course, because of money was quite a big thing. It took me 9 months to save up for my first flight back to Slovakia. So it was 9 months before I actually got to see my family for the first time after I left. And I can't remember how long, but it was a good few months that I ended up crying myself to sleep every night thinking, I don't know what I'm doing. I just, it was very much that, but it was an incredible, looking back, it was an incredible experience. And it's like everything, isn't it? It's when we look back on the toughest things that we've ever did, there were also the things that shaped us to who we are now.
And it's real character building, isn't it? Those are the things that develop your character in a way and sometimes it's that opportunity to travel and be somewhere else.
Yeah.
That obviously it's a slightly different culture, people that sort of react differently, and it's all about just learning a new way.
And also the funniest bit, well, not the funniest bit, but now looking back now it was. So I knew the book English. I studied English since I was 7 years old. But of course you end up in Medway.
Half of the story I relate.
You end up in Medway, and the English that you taught at school, the book English, is not the kind of English that you hear in the supermarkets or especially when you. And I was like, pardon? I just genuinely felt like everybody speaking a completely different language. So it took me quite a while to adjust to actually get to understand a certain way, and how, that the book English is not necessarily used in many places anymore these days. So there was an interesting transition, because I thought, oh, well, how difficult can it be? I'm fluent in English. You're fluent in English that nobody ever uses anymore.
And also American English as well, which is also from the films.
Yes, and that's it.
More American English when I came here, and I would never forget the guy in the bank who went so confident there. He started to talk to me, and I look at him, and I was just panic mode. I don't get it, and I had the confidence that I speak English, but slowly it was. And nowadays, honestly, sometimes I'm thinking, why I've had these issues? Everything is so normal and it's okay, and it's all good. But back in the time, it was a big shock, because you come here, and it's even half of the words obviously different in British and American.
Yes,
I think the good funny things to put in the story, but just on a part of the bus and how did you come? My story is really the same. I came by bus my first time. And I remember I really didn't know where I'm going, what I'm doing. I was coming a bit more, maybe I knew it because I was coming for this summer work in a farm. But again, I was just with one of my colleagues from the university and her boyfriend. 3 of us, the same picture, family down, waving. I had the moment, yeah, cool, I'm going to see something in UK. On the other side, where the hell I'm going? Because you heard so many stories of people and places, and I was, yeah. And about the train stations as well, London big. I got the story and just will say quickly. London Victoria. I don't know how did you get to the train station, but we get on the coach station, London Victoria, and they're like, oh yeah, the train station is, and obviously with the lovely English that back in the time you don't understand. So me being me, I had, I don't know, 1 or 2 big suitcases. Oh my gosh, and we start to try to go there and you go around, but here it's not like if you go in Bulgaria, usually you will notice a train station from miles, maybe that it is a train station. Here, there's these beautiful buildings, and the train station is into it. So we were walking left, right, going here, there. There is no train station, and whoever you ask, one is saying go this way, the other one is. Honestly, at some point, I was just losing it, and at the end. We just decide just keep walking, and then suddenly you walk and you see the sign, and it was so silly because nowadays it's just they're back to each other. It's not that how many years ago that was 2005. It took me an hour maybe until I found out where was the Victoria train station. But then really interesting fact for us is to make that step and to go on totally different country and jump on the so sorry for interrupting.
No.
I have so many things in my head about how the story is starting.
I love hearing other people's stories, so please do jump in anytime because I spent a lifetime talking about me, so it's always lovely to hear about that.
We are here for you today. So how did it go with the boys?
Oh, they, it was one of the most treasured experiences for me of a lifetime, really, because I've learned so much from them. They were 4 and 6 at the time, and yes, it was just a life lesson, and it was really, I was very fortunate that from me I was 24 at the time. So as a 24-year-old, I got to relive and start seeing things again from the point of how 4-year-old sees world and 6-year-old sees world. And that has had such a massive impact on how I dealt with a lot of things and who I was becoming, because as we get older and as we get more grown up, with that comes more responsibilities, but also more worries, more anxieties, and more limiting beliefs, or more kind of certain pressures of how we should behave or how we should be or what we should have achieved by now. So me stepping back into the world of a 4-year-old, it really brought things back for me, and seeing things from a 4-year-old perspective, as in not really kind of, not saying not having a care, but it's almost like that. If I want something, I'm just gonna go for it, and I just, I don't consequences. What consequences? Their brain doesn't function that way yet, because they haven't experienced all those limiting beliefs and all those pressures yet. So it was, for me, it was absolutely wonderful to be a part of that, and even though I stayed with them as a full-time living nanny for just over a year before I moved on. It felt like forever at the same time, and it didn't seem like a year. And like I said, we've never lost contact, and we've been like, they really have shaped me and helped me understand world in a different way. So perhaps my journey of coming here as a different country on my own, I had the support of the 4 and the 6-year-old. Believe it or not, they were the ones who, and of course their mum as well, but it was the boys and how they see the world as really kind of put me in a situation when I then felt ready to start applying for different jobs and things. I've always reminded myself of like the 4-year-old little brain, not little, but the 4-year-old brain in the back of my head, Owen and Harry, being them and thinking, what would they do in these circumstances? What would you do in this situation? And they'd just go for it. They would just go for it and do it. So
there's no confidence break at that point.
No.
It's just if you want to express yourself, you just say it.
And
it doesn't matter who's around you, just like, can I do this?
Yeah. And it was also my first experience of motherhood in that sense, like not necessarily motherhood, but in the sense that you are responsible for 2 other little human beings and you are becoming their role model. So when their mum is at work, it's how I am, what I do. They pick up on these things. So I've also got to experience. I had like a pre-test, if you like, So again, it was a great experience for me. So when I went then onto becoming a mum, I already had a certain experience and I already knew certain things that were going to come along the way that I was going to be facing. So that was great as well. But yeah, the just seeing the world through their eyes, it was brilliant because.
So where did it go next? How did the journey change for them? Because obviously then you thought you started applying for other jobs, and you were looking and things. So what?
Yes, so I kind of felt like as much as I wanted to stay with the family, I felt like it was time for all of us to move on into different directions, and that was for me a bit of a push to think, okay, well, I said I was going to come here to figure out what I want. But then I found myself stuck in that, and we usually do, once we find ourselves in a little comfortable bubble, it's very easy to stay there. So I thought, no, the longer I stay here, the harder it's then going to be for me to move on. And actually, because I still haven't done what I said I was going to do, I still haven't figured out what is it I actually want to do with my life. So I just started applying for jobs. And to be fair, any jobs that I felt comfortable in applying. I wasn't really confident in applying anything that was relevant to my degree, strangely enough, but it was my confidence at the time and a lot of my limiting beliefs coming from, I'm a foreigner, no one's going to want me, no one's going to give me the job. So it was a lot of those kind of rackets at the back of my head telling me those things. But I did apply for one of the jobs that I applied, and I thought I'll start with admin because I thought it's going to slowly, gradually build me up to perhaps where my expertise in terms of my studies was. And I saw this job advertised for assistant manager for a charity shop. It was Shelter the Homeless, a charity for homeless people. And so I got invited for an interview. Fantastic, really, really exciting. And I think we've talked about this, didn't we? I sat down in front of this very smiley lady and I felt so relaxed until she started speaking. She was Scottish.
So you had to learn a new language.
Now, at this point, I was only in the country for a year, so I've just about get the hang of the Medway accent. So throwing a Scottish accent, I'm just sitting there, and I have no idea what she was saying. I was just sitting there, nodding, smiling. Yeah.
We only spoke about this yesterday.
And I'm like, I don't really know what to do with this. Like, what do I say? Do I say, I'm really sorry, I actually can't understand what you're saying? So I was like, no, I can't really say that. So like, just roll with it. Just go with it. And I left the interview genuinely not knowing half of the stuff what was said. And people asked me, how did it go? I don't know. I really don't know. And I haven't heard for a little while. So I thought, well, probably nothing come of it. And a little while later, I can't remember exactly how long it was. It seemed like forever. She messaged me and she said, I'd love to offer you the job. And I was still like, I can't do this because and I was like, now I need to go back to her and I need to ask her to actually write down for me exactly that was said in the interview and what are the conditions, because I haven't got a clue what the job actually was, because I genuinely didn't I didn't understand anything that was said. So, but that was my transition, and that's, but again, the family were really, really supportive. They wanted me to go out and start building a life of my own and start becoming more independent. So, that was the first step away from the family, and then having that on my own, kind of being in my own world.
It's interesting. There's a mutual friend of ours the other day went up north to the northeast part of the country, And it's quite funny because like we always think in like you said, just being able to understand English. And obviously in different parts of the UK, there are different little sayings that people say, which are very local to that particular area. And she was in this particular area, and rather than saying hello, they go, "Why are you?"
Oh, okay.
And like, and I'm sure Rob would know like this, but like, "The way I there is like hello." It's like saying hello, and you, because it's completely like it's just local to that particular one area, and that's how they say it. But it is, but it's funny because like if you're any other parts of the country, no one uses that expression. So, but it's amazing, like and I'm sure it's probably the same in lots of other countries where there are local things that people say.
Yeah.
But it's remarkable. But when you're like learning the language and
it's absolutely the dialect, isn't it? And exactly the same. Slovakia is a tiny country in comparison to England, but it depends which part you go. I couldn't understand. So I'm from the northwest part of the country. If I was to venture out to east and they would start speaking in their dialect, I genuinely would not understand a word they're saying. So yeah, it is in every country, but it was just so funny where I'm just thinking, I got invited for an interview. Oh my God, this is amazing. And then I sit in front of Scottish lady. What are the chances?
Obviously the chances were on your side.
And her accent was really, really strong as well. It was sometimes you have got Scottish people the English is quite clear with a bit of a twang, with a bit of an accent. Hers was full on Scottish accent. So yes, it was very interesting. But we became
you gradually learned the words.
Over the years, yes. Yeah.
You're tuned in now, so if you go to Scotland, you'll speak fluent Scottish.
Well, I don't know about that, but I'd probably, if they speak an actual English language, if they don't go into the Scottish dialect, I would understand. I would get past the accent. Not too sure about their actual language. Probably have got a way to learn.
So was that a good stepping stone then for the next time? After that sort of work?
Yes, because that was gradually got me into then where I stepped into the corporate world, because I was working for Shelter Charity until 2011, I think it was 20. Yeah. So a couple of years I stayed there. I've progressed to manager, and then I've progressed to like a floating manager. So I was covering places like Ashford, all the way from Ashford, Tunbridge, Chatham, Strood, all the way up to Brighton. So I was kind of hovering between. So if they needed cover for managers, temporary covers, and I really enjoyed that part. But I felt like I have applied for a job to become an area manager, and I got turned down based on partly my age, apparently.
At that point, too young?
Yes. And I wasn't really never fully, it wasn't never fully really explained, but I felt like I needed something where I can grow and I can progress. And I felt like, well, if this is my dead end for me, I enjoyed it, but I felt like I love learning, I love growing as a person. So for me, it felt like if this is going to be a dead end, I'm not too sure whether this is coming to an end of the journey for me. And I believe things in life, the path it's incredible how things happen, because when I look back, for me, nothing was really manufactured. Nothing was really pre-planned. Things just tend to happen in my life. So we were looking to buy a house. And as we were chatting with the estate agent who was showing us around, he said to me, Katie, I think you'd make a really good estate agent, and we really need some more people. So why don't you just drop in a CV? And I was like, okay. And that was it. So that's how naturally my next journey developed, and that's where I basically spent, and that's where I entered the corporate world, and I started like working through my promotions, and that's what then eventually led into later on to the coaching side of things. But so that was the final bit, and I really enjoyed it. I loved it. I'm a workaholic. And I now can put my hand up and say it without feeling ashamed or feeling like, I'm going to be judged. But so I loved working. And
so you enjoyed working in the property field?
I did, yes. I love properties, and it's still my passion. I love anything to do with properties. I could easily spend hours watching programs on properties. Yes, yeah, and Sarah Beanie or Homes Under the Hammer, anything like that. I see it on the telly. I'm all in. Um, but it was a combination of the two things. It was the properties, but it was also the customer service side of things. I've always loved working with people, even being a nanny, making a difference in the family's life, then moving on to shelter, charity for homeless people. I loved doing something for the cause. I loved that there was it was a job, of course, but there was a bigger picture behind it, that it mattered and it did make a difference. So for me, it was the people element of it. And that has been the core of everything I did looking back now on my career, even though the jobs may seem completely and utterly mismatched. There was always the people element. So for me, it was the customer service. And it was really interesting because I came into the industry as the least salesy person. And I come into a branch where it was a phenomenal branch full of phenomenal salespeople. And I come in there with my nice customer service approach background. So it was very much of, she's not going to last. She's too nice. And it was really, I was up against that for about a year.
But I think that's a good thing, because it's really good because of your personable skills.
Yes.
And then when you're being shown around a property and someone's like warming to these different things that you're demonstrating and showing, and also the interaction between you is always really nice. Then it's really nice.
But I was possibly, and I see how now looking back now, I see they saw something that I didn't, is that I thought, yes, customer service nice, but there has to be an element where you do actually need to close for that business and make that sale. So ultimately, and that was the part of me of my journey that I wasn't quite, I didn't have the skill set for yet. And I must say the training from the company was phenomenal. So over the years, I did build a skill set. But what was amazing was that I have managed to incorporate the customer service side of things with the skill set. So I've not changed how I was interacting or how I was being, and I've just added the other skill set. And I'm not saying how the other, the other sales negotiators, perhaps, or sales consultants work is wrong or right, but it's just, it wouldn't work for me because it wouldn't.
But it found their way.
It was not me. I was different, but I could also prove to everybody that just because I was different to some of the other people, it doesn't mean that I can't get the same results or even better results than they did. And that was really, but again, the first year there reminded me of my first year in England, when I was coming home a lot of times in tears thinking, am I cut out for this? Is this for me? I'm not really. I'm in this world of very much sales, closing for the business people. And I've come from charity for homeless, two completely different worlds in a way. And I'm like, is this even for me? What am I doing here? How am I going to make this work? But yes, over the years, it's about finding our own way to do things our way, to still get the same result, and to still, because ultimately the ultimate goal for everybody in our office, whether we were doing it in a certain way or not, the ultimate goal was to help people with their move, whatever is the stage, whether they were going through building a family and upgrading a home, whether they were going through difficult times and going through separations or probates, all those kind of things. So the ultimate goal was to help those people have as easy move as possible, and to help them.
It's finding the dream, isn't it? I mean,
it's the dream home.
When you move to a new house, it's sort of like everyone's got the expectations of what they really want.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it doesn't always exist. Very, very rarely. And even people who've got the most endless budget become even more fussy. It's even harder for them probably than it is for maybe someone who's just got an expectation. I just want 3 bedrooms and a lounge and a kitchen, and that's the most important thing, and that's all I need. But for some people, it's exactly happening, isn't it? It becomes and finding that compromise that works.
And do you know what? It's not necessarily even compromise. And looking back on it now, in a way that was already coaching. So it was coaching the people that were viewing the houses, because when I brought the customer element side of it into the sales business, when I delved deeper, so when people said to me, I want a 3-bedroom house, blah, 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 this, it wasn't just, okay, it was, right, well, why do you want the 3 bedrooms? What is the reason? What is it going to give you? So when I got to understand the lifestyle that they were after, I could then find them the house that might not necessarily tick the right boxes on their list, but it ticked the right boxes in a sense of it was going to give them the lifestyle that they wanted.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of times, and you probably experienced this yourself, a lot of times when we look for homes, we have got, of course, our checklist of what's important and what we want. And as we start going through the houses, my experience of it was that a lot of times people ended up buying houses that ticked hardly any of those boxes on the list, because as they start going through the house, there's just something where you walk into that house and you've just got this connection with the house and you think, I can see myself living here. I can see my children growing up here, or whatever that may be. And all of a sudden you have that vision and you feel comfortable being there.
It's like a layout and it's a wall.
Something, exactly.
Certain things in the house, the way it's decorated and presented.
And
makes all the difference.
And then you will look back through your checklist and you think, well, it hasn't got this. I said I want this, but it hasn't got that. But it all of a sudden no longer matters. Mm-hmm. So it was in a way coaching already in there to kind of understand really what do they want to achieve from the house. So the 3 bedrooms, the 2 reception rooms, the big garden, that's your kind of features of the house. Yeah. But what are the actual benefits? You know, what is the benefit of you having those 3 bedrooms? What is the benefit of you having those 2 lounges? What do you, I just think because we're upgrading, we've got 3 kids, so we should have this kind. You know, it's very much going back to the shoots and what we think is expected of us. You know, we're supposed to be having upgrading by this point to a bigger house. But okay, do you need a bigger house? No, not really. So it really is that coaching element in there to dig deeper and understand what do they want to achieve by their move. So effectively figuring out what the goal is, which is coaching really.
It is.
And I loved the company's mission, and that's when I kind of stuck through, even when I felt like this may not be for me. And I was even on, I think I had my 2nd or 3rd review to think I wasn't so they didn't approve my probation because even they questioned whether it was the right fit for me. So I think it took 9 months before I passed my probation period. But I stuck with it because I loved the company's mission, which was to help our customers achieve their dream move. And I really loved that, having that mission within the company. So because a lot of times especially in the property world, it can become very much about the business, the money, the kind of that side of it. So to have that human element in it and helping our customers achieve their dream move, that really spoke to me. And that's where I felt like this is...
I don't know how much you've got connection with the people that you found their dream homes, but back in 2000 and... I know I'm going to mess up the years maybe, but maybe 2010. So 15 years ago, there was a lady in a state agency that she helped us to find a house that I remember we met her for our first move, and it was a really small house. Back in the time, it was good for us. And I will never forget, we walked in, there were other people as well. We were like young couples. Something was in her that we like. She likes us a lot. And I will never forget how she said, if you really want this, just go and do this, and that. And I always had this thought in my head, because I am foreigner in this country, how I'll be treated when I need this and that. It was brilliant. Unfortunately, the landlord, after 3 months, decided he would sell the house. So it was a bit panic mode. I was pregnant. And then she was very much enthusiastic. She found us the right house. We checked houses, and I was like I didn't like anything. And it was one house, because I was pretty sure we're going to move Ashford, some other places. I said, can you give me details of any estate agents for other towns? No, I really want to find something for you guys. I absolutely love you. And there was one house, and she told me, please come here 6 o'clock in the evening. I was like, okay. I will never forget up to today, honestly. We went there. I didn't have where to park. And for me, this was one of the biggest tick boxes. No parking. No. And I was talking to my husband. I said, we just don't have even where to park now. We park on the other street. But in the minute we walk in the house, this is it. Something happened with me. I don't know, was it the layout? I don't know what it was, but this is it. I just walked in and I said, this is the house. After the houses that we've seen, they were absolutely not fit at all. And then the landlord was there, a lovely lady who got some Polish roots. She was there. Oh, hello. We talked with her up to today, good friends with her as well, with her partner. It was incredible. And I was like, okay, now I like everything except the car park. She was like, Meri, sometimes we have to make some choices.
Yeah.
Bathroom was maybe half of this room. Honestly, It was unbelievable house. And we spent quite long time, 6-7 years maybe. We spent there. Just we needed to move. But all the time I was always talking about my lovely estate agent. And I'm still in touch with her, Jo.
Oh, how
If you
wonderful.
listen that, it's amazing. That's why I think they definitely play a very important role. And we like to talk about customer service and that personal touch, but it makes a difference because in the meantime, we've been to agencies and they were like, you can literally see the way how they treat you, not because of who we are, it's just in general.
Yeah.
And after that, you're surprised why some people are more busier. I believe doesn't matter what are the other skills, the personal skills will always be the most important in my point of view.
Escape to luxury at Hempstead House Hotel and Spa, an elegant country house hotel in Bapchild, near Sittingbourne, Kent. Relax with indulgent spa treatments. Dine in style with exquisite cuisine. Perfect for getaways, weddings and events. Experience luxury in the heart of Kent. Book your stay today.
Be the first to discover Kent's best events all in one free app. What's On in Kent is a new and rapidly growing app where you can find days out information, places to eat, festivals, concerts, markets, and much more around you. Just with few clicks on your phone or computer, you can stay updated with real-time info and explore events across Kent. Don't even think twice. Just download. It's free.
I agree, because it's a lot of times you can be the best salesperson, but if that customer service, if that genuine want to help the other person is not there, if you're literally just doing it as a transactional thing rather than a relationship side of thing, it's going to be a very short-term thing. So you may win the sale, but the customer, the likelihood is the customer's not going to go and tell everybody what an amazing service they received. They're not going to come back to you in 2 years' time, because moving is a cycle, isn't it? People move every couple of years for different reasons. And also, what I've always had at the back of my mind, moving is one of the most stressful things that we ever go through in our life. They do say the 3 most stressful things in life you go through is marriage, moving, and having children. So, moving is really, really stressful. So to make that difference in somebody's life by giving them a little bit of support and actually genuinely be there to support them, it really does make a big difference. And then the result of it, the business grows.
There's a lot of pressure as well, isn't there, sometimes? Because, particularly when people are looking something, if they're moving house, a lot of people move up the ladder as their family grows or their situation changes. And often people will push themselves to the degree. And then sometimes they might end up looking at maybe a property or something that is maybe just beyond them. And then they go, oh, yeah, we really want this. But then when they really dig in, it's they suddenly realize, actually, this isn't quite within my grasp.
Yes.
And then so they have to then come back to you and say, and you think, oh, this is done. But then they're saying, oh, actually, I don't think I can do that. I need to find something a little bit more within my price range or whatever it is. And then it's then how you then react to that situation. Because some people go, well, that was exactly the house for you. Oh, I can't believe it. And then the other person feels like, oh. But if you then react and go, actually, that's fine. Let's go and help you, and you, because then that person's left feeling, okay, now I can go back to you again. And that.
Yeah, and it's also, those kind of calls are slightly out of the remit of what was my job role. But then we were fortunate enough that we had people in the office who were qualified mortgage advisors. So we would then say, right, okay, well, let's sit down with Colin, his name is, he was working in the SM office as me. And so we would say, well, why don't you go and sit down with Colin, to see whether there is a way that it could work. And if there is quite obvious way that it doesn't work, then yes, of course, we will then revisit. But the other side of the moving is also, yes, when people upgrade, it's the exciting move. But a lot of times it's the less exciting move when people go through separations and they're giving up their family homes and they're downsizing because of potential financial struggles and they can't necessarily no longer afford. So they go into smaller house, or, the sad stories when sadly someone passes away and we're dealing with probate. So movies, not necessarily always the exciting, we're buying a house together for the first time, or we're getting a bigger house, we're getting there's also the more sad side of the move as well, and that the how we deal with those clients is even more, because someone who's already in quite a emotional state and quite upset about the whole thing, it could really make or break a person, the way they dealt with in these kind of very, very sensitive situations. So yeah.
How long you spent there? What did you learn, and how far did you go on the ladder?
So I made it to senior sales advisor, and my next, I was literally one step away from senior sales consultant. I started doing my training to, I started doing some valuations and listings. At the time, I wasn't still 100% sure whether that was the path I wanted to pursue, but I wanted to get trained in it just so I can make up my mind, or whether I was going to be happy to progress and still progress the path where I was, but progress further up in a ladder, because there was two ways I could take it. And then I fell pregnant with Ellie, our second baby, and that's when everything's changed, because I was one of those people that I would be in the office at 8 o'clock in the evening when most people have left home at 6 o'clock. I would be the person that would come in on a day off to show people around, because if that was the only time they were available, I would. So there was a lot of things that when I look back now as a coach, I would certainly give myself a few bits of, I would certainly question certain things in terms of what falls under urgent and important, understanding and having those boundaries, which I didn't have at the time. Those boundaries were non-existent. So I would say literally yes to everything and everybody, just to kind of accommodate the viewing, accommodate this, accommodate that. And then it was also the pressure, not pressure, but it was also that kind of, I would like to earn a little bit more money because we would like to buy a bigger house. We would like to go on better holidays. So it was all that. So I did end up working long hours. And
that's one of the tough things, particularly in that particular field, because obviously the times that people can go and look at a property, the working day for most people is the sort of 8 till 5 or 8 till 4, whatever it is, or working their individual shifts. But the times that suit individuals to go and look at a property are
late evenings, and weekends.
Evenings and weekends,
Which
is exactly the time when you want to be at home. And obviously, you said you've already got a young child, and here you are pregnant again. With and obviously that then puts new pressures, and and it leads you really into the pathway of that thinking, oh, I'm not at home, or and that's when when the pressures of life, all the different things you need to do, changes, doesn't it?
Yes, very much so. And there was 6 years, I think it was, before I went on maternity leave with my second one. So 6 years I was there working through the ladder, and I really did enjoy it. But yes, like you said, towards the end, it was very much the kind of constant guilt, like I'm missing out on so much stuff. But I also knew exactly that, if I wanted to sell a house, I needed to be available when people were available and when they could view the houses. But what I didn't understand at the time is that I was still also starting in the office. So I was in the office by 8 o'clock every morning. So there was no kind of, okay, well, if I'm going to work evening or if I'm going to work weekends, then I'm going to do a little bit less. Hey, there wasn't any of that. I did all of that as well as. And that's when probably, like I said, the boundaries were not necessarily there. But also things were a little bit different because all this was pre-COVID. So the flexi hours wasn't really a thing. And working from home wasn't a thing. It had to be always the office. So it was really those things, like when I wanted to go and watch Joshua's sports day, I had to take a day off work to do it. It wasn't like, oh, okay, well, you take a couple of hours in the morning off and you can come in the office. It was either you take the whole day off or you don't. So then it was a decision I had to make, like, okay, and in estate agency, you're not a whole day. Someone else can pick up the phone. So you could be working with a client, someone picks up the phone, books that viewing, and you've lost. So it was very much, so it really was like, well, what do I do? Do I go sports day? Do I go? So when I did go sports day, I would be thinking, all the calls I'm missing. And I could, that you kind of almost worry, like when I'm losing that day in the office, and what am I going to come back to next day kind of thing. But when I didn't go to, if I made a choice not to go, then I would sit there in the office, bawling my eyes out, telling myself what a horrible mother am I. And so it was that constant, I was never present at either of those. When I was at home, I was constantly thinking about, I should be at work doing this, worrying about what's happening at work. When I was at work, I remember this episode, and I'll never forget it. It was really heartbreaking for me at the time. It was a Saturday morning. I was sitting in the office, and then a video come through. By then we had WhatsApp messages and videos. So a video come through of Josh riding his bike for the first time without stabilizers in a park. And now in the open office, I had a full-on meltdown. I burst into tears because I thought I should have been there. I can't believe I've missed this. So it was that pride that, oh my God, I can't believe he did that. But at the same time, I'm sitting here. What am I doing? And then that was probably one of the breaking points for me when I started thinking, like, where am I going with all of this? What's going on? And that's the thing is, when we set into start our careers and pursue ambitions, it's all great. But then all of a sudden, when the parenting is thrown in the mix, my biggest thing was that I still continued as if nothing's changed. I still felt like I could do all of this in the same way. So I could still be a mum and I could still be doing exactly the same hours. So it's not necessarily about, I can't have the ambition, I can't have career. But what I failed to understand was that I'm just going to have to go about it differently. I have to adapt it to my new circumstances. I have to adapt it to my new situation. I just was trying to force things to work in exactly the same way as it did before I became a mum. And the longer I did that, the more clear it was becoming. And it was getting to the point where I was starting to get more ill, burnouts, anxiety, and the mental health kind of took a serious dive in 2015, which was not long before I fell pregnant with Ellie. I remember my manager, I would have never known this if he didn't come up to me, just come up to me one day and he said, Katie, I think you need to go and see a doctor. I was like, looking at, I beg your pardon? Like, what? So no, I really think you're going to need to see someone. And I didn't quite understand. So why would you even say that? Well, I don't get it. But he obviously saw something that I didn't. So I listened. I went to GP, and GP, what she did, she said, so Katie, why are you here? And that was it. I couldn't stop crying for 20 minutes. I don't know where it come from. I don't know what's happening, but she said, right, okay. So you're going to take some time off work. And she said it really well. We're going to prescribe you some antidepressants. I was like, whoa, like, there's nothing wrong with me. She said, Katie, you need to take some time out. But no, I'm not taking time out of work. So we had this kind of ongoing argument at the doctor's where she, me being me, I messaged my manager. I said to him, I'm coming back to work tomorrow. He said, what did the doctor say? Never mind. I said, no, what did the doctor say? It's like, Katie, you're not coming back to work until you're ready. So I'm grateful that he did see something that I didn't. And I'm grateful he put his foot down. He said, I'm not having you back. Not because I don't want you back, but I'm not having you back because you really need to take some time out.
It's addictive. Do you know what I think? I think it's like, particularly in the sales field, it's like you start sort of getting addicted by numbers, and then you're looking at what your colleagues are doing, and there's like,
oh yes,
this, and you're always like, well, actually, I've been the best in the sales team for the last 3 months. I've got to do it the next month. I've got to do it the next month. I've got to do it the next month. So like, that is the addiction, and I think it's one of the hardest things. And not people. I think in a normal office environment, people don't necessarily see that, but it's one of the most fulfilling things when you work in the sales field is to think, okay, well, forget that project, and whether it's numbers or whether it's the financial value or whether it's the commissions, and also then you think, well, if you could do that and do that and do that, then I know we can do this, and then we can do this, and it becomes so addictive, and then. The thing is in life, and I think it's when we talk about the guilt situation, it's multifaceted because it's the guilt of, like you said earlier, you're at work but you feel bad because you're not with family moments, and then when you're with the family, it's the other way around. But then it's also like the balance in every way, because it's a balance with friends, with family, with the children, with your partner,
And yourself.
and yourself, and having time for yourself, because it ends up where you can see where burnout comes so quickly, and obviously to where you'd got,
Yeah.
where actually you suddenly realise that I haven't done anything for me, or I don't even count,
Yeah.
or my partner doesn't count anymore, or the children don't count anymore, and it's a very difficult balance. And I think that's one of the pressures definitely in the sales side, and it can push people to the limit.
Do you know what we had in our office? So it wasn't necessarily the amount of sales. It wasn't necessarily the commission. It was the pipeline, the size of your pipeline. We all always had our eyes on a pipeline, because when we had the pipeline at a certain level, because of course in sales, when you're dealing with sales of homes, sales fall apart, so chains break. So, but we knew if we kept our pipeline, and we had our individual pipelines as salespeople within the office. So if we knew that our pipeline was kept at a certain level, even if the sale would fall through and we lose a little bit of commission, if we keep it at a certain level, you're going to have a good paycheck, because we always work in 3 to 4 months ahead, because we don't get the commission until after the completion. We don't get the commission when the sale is actually agreed. We get the completion after the sale completes. So, but in that gap between the sales being agreed and sales completing, that's when we build in the pipeline. So that's where the pipeline, we know this is what we've got in there, and eventually when it completes, will turn into commission. So our eyes were always on the pipeline, and so there was always this competition who had the biggest pipeline in the office, and you never ever wanted to be the last person with the worst pipeline, because when it came to your 3 months review, and when we had the quarterly reviews, you didn't want to be the person in the meeting be like, yeah.
So that's why you wanted to answer the phone.
Yes. And then the thing is, though, with the pipeline is you could have 20 sales, but your pipeline could still be the least amount of pipeline, because the pipeline was based on the value of the properties and the value of the commission, which was a percentage of the property. So, it was your choice as a salesperson. It was our choice. Well, do I go for quality, as in, do I go for lesser sales but higher value? Or do I build the quantity? So do I go for the smaller price properties and have lots of them in my pipeline to get, because I could have 10 sales, but my pipeline could still be less than somebody who made only 5 sales, but all of them sold houses that were, well, at the time, average 3-bedroom was about 180, 200,000 pounds. So, you needed to sell 3 or 4 500,000 houses, and you were laughing where, with the average prices houses, for me to match up that pipeline, I would have to sell a lot more of those. So it was but it was fun. It was done in a fun way, and we all became very close friends in our office. But it was the manager, like I said, he spotted that something's not quite doesn't gel quite well, and that's when he said. So I took 2 months out in the end. That's when I redecorated pretty much the whole house, learned how to wallpaper, because I don't do very well with sitting still. So I had to find something that would keep me busy. And yes, and then I returned back to work. And then shortly after that, I fell pregnant with Ellie. And like I said, from then on, the journey took on a completely different path after the maternity leave. So yeah, but it certainly has been a journey.
So obviously, what I know a little bit, but you can explain us how you took the decision to step back from the corporate world and from the job that you are enjoying, but until a certain point. And what was that tipping point that you decide to go when you go into stuff you did?
Yes. So I really wanted to continue with my career after maternity leave, but at that point I already knew, talking about going back to the guild and everything else, I already knew that I wanted to do it differently.
Yeah.
But I still wanted to have the career. So I approached management and I asked, is there a way that I could come back after maternity leave on a part-time basis? Not forever, but let's say for first 2 years or until. And they said at the time, and I understand, because at the time, again, we didn't have the working from home. You had to be in the office, so they had to protect their business. So their response was, if you want part-time position, you have to demote yourself. So you either come back full-time to keep your senior position, or you come back, but you will have to demote yourself because we do not offer senior roles on a part-time basis. And it really got to me because I'm thinking I've worked really hard to get to that point, and it was that part of it was the ego, the pride of letting it go. That title, I felt like I've really earned the title, not seeing the bigger picture, and I really hang on to the title. I was like, no, I'm not having this. And after lots of negotiations, I have managed to come to agreement with the management that I was one of those fortunate people that we were in the area where we did have lots of opportunities to make those sales. So the circumstances to make the sales were easier. And I did win a couple of awards for being the top salesperson for the area. So what they said is, if you can continue with your performance as you are now, all the way up to your maternity leave, we could compromise and we could meet you in the middle. If you only take 6 months, if you continue with your performance and you're on the quartiles in the top sort of level, and if you only take 6 months maternity leave instead of the whole year, we will hold your position and you can come back part-time, and then we will discuss how long for. So to me, that was an amazing win. I felt like this has not really been done before, kind of thing. And I felt like really, really grateful. And I worked really hard, and I had a really difficult pregnancy as well. One of my colleagues ended up driving me to hospital one of the days from the office. So it wasn't an easiest of pregnancies, but I've managed to fulfill on all those requirements, all those criteria. So I was really looking forward to picking up my career after 6 months and doing it part-time and experiencing the whole part-time, because I've never worked part-time before. So I was really, really looking forward to it. But unfortunately, what I didn't predict, and nobody knew this was going to happen, is my marriage fell apart whilst I was on maternity leave. So I then had a meeting saying, I know we've had an agreement, but I'm currently going through, my life is up in the air. I don't really know what's going on. I don't know if we're going to stay together, not stay together, if I'm going to have to start looking for a different home. So I need to take the whole year maternity leave and sort out those few things. But because I did that, also the whole deal was kind of off. So when my maternity leave finished, it was the case, right, what's the deal? Are you coming back full-time or are you demoting yourself? And that's when I was faced with a really, really difficult decision, because I loved being mum, but I'm very ambitious. So career for me, giving it up was something that I never felt I had to face. And looking back now, we always have a choice, but at the time I felt like I was pushed and I was not given a choice. That's how I felt.
Can I say something? Because here I really don't understand. A manager is finding out that because of your hard work, you are getting to the point of burnout, flagging up, you're taking the time off. You've got all this absolutely amazing and outstanding performance. And when it comes to moments to be a mom, because you're pregnant and because we all talk about how we need to have well-being, look after families and etc., instead of being supported with that, you are given requirements and targets that you have to do to be able after that eventually to go and have the deal that you want. If you turn that back a little bit while I'm listening, honestly, I'm just getting a bit emotional and angry, because this is why we are up to today, because we all talk, and I do understand that was before lots of changes, but why COVID need to come to put some changes. And it's really weird how in the same company is happening, one person is saying because your burnout or your way to be a month or two out of work is because of your hard work, which you do until you have a young child at home. And all this is not seen and appreciated by whoever. And when you need them to help and step up, and especially when your family is, I'm talking personal view. If I'm a manager or director of a company and I've got someone like that, I'm the one who needs to go and support this person because they need the help now. And they did enough for me during the time. This is why I will never understand the thinking of the people. They push it to the limit, and after that we're talking about mental health. No, you don't talk about that once people are fall with the breach, or
Yeah.
you lend a hand.
I mean, I was in the anger stage over this for a very long time, and I was trapped in a victim mode for a very long time. And I was very much like, I can't believe this is happening to me. I can't believe you're doing this to me. My life is up in the air. I'm going through a really difficult time in my life. And then now I've got to make yet another difficult decision. The thing with that is that with everything, when you kind of fast forward a few years on and then you look back and you also all of a sudden start seeing things from their perspective as well. And I'm not saying whether that was right or wrong, but it is a big corporate company. So there isn't just one decision to be made. That how it works is, they do say it rolls down the hill, right? So the person who had to make that decision, they were responsible to report to somebody else, and they were responsible to report to somebody else. So effectively,
we need to find the humanity in all this.
Absolutely, I agree.
Personality, because I do understand all this money in corporate and everything, but at the end of the day, we're human beings.
Yeah.
And particularly, I suppose, particularly in that particular industry, it's not like it's all men. It's very often very balanced in the offices between like ladies and men working together.
You can go and check the ladies' age, because I've got a theory about that as well. And I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, it's nothing about that particular company or not. That's happening everywhere.
It's everywhere.
In every kind of business.
And, I genuinely looking back now, and I genuinely believe they made a decision they felt was the right decision for their business. Ultimately, their business is their priority. It's their number one. Yes. So, but I agree in the sense that it's sad that we had to have something like COVID and the world pandemic to step in for people to actually start seeing, we could make this work in different ways. So it really, I think, the pre-COVID mentality in the corporate world, certainly in the corporate world, was perhaps stuck in the very old-fashioned ways with lots of old traditions, and it's nice to see that it's moving away from that now. I know there's still a work to be done, but it's certainly moving in the right direction. But this is why I'm so passionate about the whole coaching around the guild and around the life coaching, because the business coaching is fantastic and we need it in order for our business to grow. But the life coaching is, I look at it in a way, if I had a life coach and if I was life coached when I was in the middle of it all, just before my burnouts, if I knew and if I had some kind of support and guidance how to combine my career and my ambitions with my personal and family life and being able to look after myself at the same time, I wouldn't had to go through the whole burnout. And, I went through the extreme, which was a couple of years later, which was even worse when I started suffering with mini strokes. That was the last kind of wake up call for me. So if I look back, and one thing that I would have changed is if I had that coaching, how to combine the corporate world, the ambitions or everything else with the life outside of it. Even the big corporate companies like the estate agents, the sales environments where the pressure really is quite high and the working hours are very long. So if we had, and their training, like I said, their training inside the job role with business is phenomenal. I can't fault that. So if that was to be combined with the coaching, how to combine it with your living your life outside of work, that would be amazing. And that's the message I'm trying to get across nowadays is, don't forget there is a life outside of the work, and it doesn't mean it has to be equal. It doesn't mean there's a balance in terms of like 50-50 or however. We just got to be mindful of it, that we can blend it all in, absolutely. But yeah, looking back now, I'm still grateful that it happened, because again, it led me to this point. Exactly. Yes, so it was. But it was at the time, I didn't see it that way. At the time, I was very much sulking. I was very much, how dare they? And exactly, like you said, after everything I've done, and this is how I get treated. So it was all these kind of, and it's only now I'm looking at it, it's that they were just doing what they thought was best for the company at the end of the day. It wasn't personal. It wasn't aimed at me personally. It wasn't, let's go ruin Katie's life. It wasn't, but that's how it felt to me at the time. And I think that's another thing I have learned is, whatever decisions people make, it's never about us. When people make certain decisions, it's when they're making decisions from their point of view for what they believe is right, for their protective. They're not making decisions about us. So, yeah.
So how did you make that next step? Because obviously at this point, it was pretty terrifying. Obviously,
yes.
This sort of
So I did kind of look at the kids and I look at the whole situation and I'm thinking, oh, it's just not going to work for me to because I knew if I was to return to work on full-time basis, I knew the guilt and the struggle would be even worse than what it was before then, which means my performance would not be great. And so it wouldn't be good for the business for me to return, and it wouldn't be good for my mental health or, in general for my family life. So I did make a decision to resign. And what I did instead, I've decided to take a break from career altogether. And at the same time, I did decide to walk away from the marriage. So I did, in the middle of it all, I did also become a single mum. So that was, I mean, looking back, I don't know which one was more difficult, getting on that coach, or, but I suppose the fact, and that was one of the things I was able to look back because I wasn't too sure, can I make this on my own? Can I do this? And I did remember, girl, you got on a coach at the age of 24 and went on your own to a completely different country with 60 quid in your pocket. If you could do that, you can start your life all over again. And I think that's what really helped me to kind of like, now if you could do this, if you could do that, you can do this too. But it was definitely an interesting ride, and I've also learned how the system sometimes is not necessarily built to support the people that really need the support. But that's a whole other story. Is when I was told that I needed to find a new family home whilst the house that we owned was going through sale, the family home. So I was looking for a rental place and nobody would take me because at the time I've given up my career. I had part-time jobs I was carer, I was working in a pub and a couple of other bits and bobs just to survive. So of course, computer says no, I didn't have the income to support and because I live, all my family are abroad, I didn't have a guarantor. I had no one to be a guarantor. So all the letting agents sadly said, we're really sorry, but you don't meet the criteria. So I called council and council said to me, well, you need to basically be homeless first before we can help you. And I was like, okay, so what does that mean? They said, well, you're going to have to wait until the day the sales of your family home goes through. And when you hand over the keys to the estate agent, that's when you call us and that's where we'll find you a temporary accommodation. So I said, so you expect me with 2 young children
to be on the street,
to have my black sacks ready, whatever bits of furniture or perhaps I'd be left with, to then at that point call you, can you please help me find a home? They said, yes, that's pretty much how it's going to, that's the only way we can help you. So it was a real, like, there was another moment where I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? But I do believe that if you keep the faith, if you keep going, things will happen. And fortunately, because of my connections through estate agents and that, a friend of mine knew a landlord who was willing to take me on, knowing all my circumstances, and we were really, really grateful for that. So we did find the home, and it was amazing.
You didn't have to literally do that.
We didn't have to go through it.
How the heck did you cope with that? Because I can't imagine what it would be like just to sit outside an estate agent where you literally just come up because you dropped the key off.
Yeah, and then you just...
Hello, have you got a house for me tonight? Oh, sorry, no, nothing for the next 3 weeks.
And I'm sure they would come up with something, but it's just, you having to go through that and get into the point. And I believe a lot of people do have to go that far before they get the support. Like I said, I was fortunate enough because of all the connections and everything. I was able to then find someone who did take me on, and I was very, very grateful for that. But that's when I've gone from one extreme to the other. So I've gone from being completely obsessed with my work and career and working crazy hours to giving it all up. And because we had shared custody with children, I had the opportunity half the week to still work, but not missing out on the time with children, which was brilliant. This is amazing. So the old me is like full mode, right? So what jobs can I do that I can work as many hours as possible in them 3 days so I don't have to work at all on the days when the children are with me? So of course I became a carer, because as a carer you can do night shifts, you can do double shifts, you can do triple shifts. So it's not a great pay, but I could really squeeze in as many hours in them 3 days as possible. Well, that wasn't quite enough. So I then found myself a job in a pub. I worked in a pub. And also to make things a little bit more, I started, I've joined an online business, network marketing business, where I was selling health products and weight loss products. Yeah, so it was, as you can imagine, quite a lot of juggling, quite a lot of working. But so in my ideal world, how I had this in my head was, I'm going to work all the hours under the sun when kids are not with me, and then I'm going to enjoy the time when they're with me. Well, that was how I imagined it. And the reality of it was, because I worked all them hours, by the time kids came to me, I was absolutely exhausted. I was short-tempered, and I started becoming someone who I actually didn't even recognize anymore. And I still felt depressed because I'm ambitious, so I've missed pursuing my career. I'm not saying I actually enjoyed every single job I did. I really enjoyed. There was parts of it I really enjoyed, again, with the caring. There's the people element in a pub. When you have chats with people, and a lot of times in a pub, you're serving someone and people do come and tell you their life story. So there was always parts of each of those jobs that I really enjoyed, but it wasn't my ambition. It wasn't something that I actually found fulfilling myself. So deep down, I was unfulfilled. I was exhausted. And that's when I've started experiencing a whole new different of burnouts. When I thought I've experienced burnout in 2015, there was nothing in comparison to what was happening then, because that's when I started suffering with mini strokes. And it kind of hit me a little bit, because I then remembered my dad had a heart attack when I was 4 years old. He was 32 and he nearly died. He was in coma for a very long time, and many people didn't think he was going to pull through. He then had further two when I was 16 and 17. So, but I totally forgot about that. My auntie died at the age of 43 of stroke when my cousin was 15 years old. Again, completely forgot about it. And it was just that one moment when I realized, what are you doing, Katie? What are you doing to your body, to yourself, to your children? Like, you can't go on like this. And that's when I thought, there's got to be a way where we can have the fulfillment of pursuing careers and the motherhood, but also really being able to look after ourselves without feeling guilty about it. Because that's one of the biggest things that mum face. As soon as we do something for ourselves, even though it is for our own benefit, it's the health side of things, the well-being, the guilt starts like, no, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to be there for that. It becomes such a challenging thing, and it becomes such a chain around your ankle all the time. Every time you do something for yourself, you're like, got that little voice whispering.
You can't even enjoy it, what you're doing, because you've got the feeling that and the guilt that,
But that was the breaking point where I thought, there's got to be a way. And that's when I started looking into the whole of, I started focusing more on the online side business when I said the network marketing, the health and well-being product. And it literally simply started with me I'm just going to look after my health. I did join that particular marketing because I just wanted to lose weight after having a baby. I just wanted to fit back into my size 8 jeans, which was like this like big cool. I was looking at the jeans like, I'm gonna fit into those jeans one day again. So it started with just that, but it then developed into something so much more, because I then realized that it's no longer about the size of my jeans. It really is about how I feel. And when I started looking after my health physically, I then realized that it's great, but it still doesn't work until you start looking after your mindset as well. Looking after what you put in our bodies physically, the exercise side of things is great, but without having the mindset and without being genuinely happy inside, it's not going to work as well. So we have to have a combination of the two. And that's when I started coaching. I started reading lots of different books on personal development. And that's exactly how the whole coaching, and this was 2018. So this is where the whole coaching kind of journey started, really. So that was pretty much the birth of KP Life Coaching.
Was there any particular books that you read at that particular point that you think?
So the first ever book that completely changed my view on things was, and again, this was through the network marketing. So my upline, the lady who got me into the network business, she said, Katie, have you ever read a book called Secret? I was like, never even heard of it. Never even heard of it. Picked up the book. After I finished reading it, I was like, how did I not know this book existed? Now, don't get me wrong. Me coming from someone who's very logical and very much systematic, and you work hard, you do this, you do that, and you progress in your life in certain ways. So reading things about manifestation are a bit like, So when I first read it, there was a few things I read. I was a bit far-fetched, really. But the more I was stepping into that journey, the more I was going back to that book, and I was like, maybe it wasn't, and I started entering that world of the whole, it's not necessarily always about working hard. It's not necessarily about having the logical explanation for everything. Sometimes really is, and not sometimes, a lot of times it really is just being connected with, understanding what really is important to us in here, and just follow that. And really rely on that gut instinct as well. I've learned, because before then I would be like, well, it doesn't make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, I'm not touching it, because it's that, I was too scared to take any kind of risks. And, I was living in the comfort of the safety bubble. Each time I was progressing in my life, when I looked back, it was always calculated. It was always a safe move. It was, so Book Secret, definitely. That was the big turning point. But yeah, like I said, when I read it first time, I was like, gosh, load of rubbish. So the first view, what it was, load of rubbish. Then I went back to then it got me thinking. I went back to it, and that's when it was the kind of, how did I not see this? And then from then on, there was loads of books. I have got a list longer than my arm of books, and then I've got even longer list of books that I'm still yet to read. But that was the first one that really kind of, oh, okay, this is different.
There are lots of little examples there that you can start implement them in your daily life, and you can see that it does work.
Even the one, I don't know how familiar you are with the book in details, but even the one when they're talking about manifesting car parking spaces, we always laugh about it. But even those, when I first read it, I was like, get over. Like, there's no way that I'm just going to manifest parking spaces outside my own house. We live on a road which is a resident permit parking, so it really is like, we do sometimes end up parking two rows away from a house. But it's amazing.
No, it does. This is the first example that I'm seeing that he was read it. I was like, read this book. But as well, I had a friend who talked me about that. If I must be honest, the job that I am already 10 years, it's a result of this, because I already create the picture what I want and where I want to work. And I remember when I went, because after numerous 2 years rejections, even to go for an interview, I had a friend on Saturday having a coffee with at home, and she was like, you need to be very clear in your idea and manifest, visualize. And I was like, well, I was like, yeah, exactly, I'm going to visualize, and plus that I'm going to give a go. And I just, for a little while, I was just figuring out what exactly I want to do, what type of company I want, big, small, how to look at the offices, etc. Then suddenly I started to go on interviews, and I will not forget the day when I had an interview in the one road, in the company on one side. I park there, interview go well. Not. We park on the other one. I was with my husband, and he was just parking the car. And I looked the building out. I said, that's my company. He said, are you okay? And I was like, I'm going to work here. I walked there. I had an interview. I was so sure that that's going to be. 2 weeks later, congratulations. I can't believe, but this is a real example as well, like many more after that. Yeah. But often I forget that thing, and it's good sometimes to come and remind you again about the power. But yeah, it sounds very not logical, but obviously that's why it was very well kept secret for only some people in life. And now we've got the choice to implement and not in our life.
Yeah. Absolutely, because I come from numbers background. So for me, things like this, it doesn't make sense, So as you can imagine, it's like...
But when you park it into your house...
until you actually experience it. But what I would add to that is, what I have certainly learned is, having the vision is great and manifesting it is great, but it's still, there needs to be connection to it, and there has to be a true faith that you actually genuinely believe in what you're visualizing. Because a lot of times I have in the past, just by saying it, just by visualizing it, it doesn't actually necessarily mean it's going to happen. So there has got to be that real connection with it. And like you said, you are so dead certain that this is my office, this is where I'm going to be working. That has to be that certainty that there's no other way that it's going to be. And that's it, end of. And exactly, the work needs to come and back it up. There has got to be an action with everything that we want to achieve. There has got to be an action, the knowledge, the tools, everything else is great, but without the action, nothing changes. Absolutely. But yeah, so that was quite an interesting turn. Absolutely.
Do you have a coach yourself?
I have, yes. Yeah. And I'm very grateful because I've also had recently had a couple of conversations and sessions with a business coach as well. So I've got a life coach, and then I've had a support from the business side of coach as well. So because I am a strong believer that where you get in your life very much depends on the people you surround yourself with. And also the thing is, me as a coach, I can help people discover their blind spots, but I'm never going to be able to see mine. You know, my blind spots are my blind spots. So that's why I need my coach to help me bring the focus back so I can discover my blind spots. So, yes.
So, I mean, it's a really interesting point because, like, so many people talk, you know, like these days, I mean, I think initially, I need to coach, well done. And then since we've been doing the podcast, I've learned that so many business leaders, whether it's MDs or business owners, they always seem to have someone either mentoring them or a coach. Very few actually can do that pathway without having that extra support. And it's a really powerful thing because you need to coach, surely. And also, if you're already coaching, well, surely you know all the strategies and how to do everything. So why would you need to coach yourself? But like you say, you're so busy and you don't look in the mirror about what's going on around you, your peripheral vision. You're so focused on helping everybody else, you forget about your own situation. And the stop, think.
Yeah.
Have you thought about this? Because the coach doesn't always tell you exactly how to do everything, but it's like you say, showing you the pathways.
Yes, and that's exactly what coaching is. It's more the support, and through the right tools and through right techniques to help you discover what you already know. And this is the thing that what coaching does, it brings out what's already deep down, but for some reason we don't see it. And that's the thing, and that's why I call it blind spot, because it's like, you know, that bit at the end of your nose, you don't get to see it. So
do you know why nowadays coaches are getting more and more needed than years ago? Have you got any explanation on that?
I think it's probably more because of the pressures. Everything's so fast-paced. So where before, so if I look at, for example, I spent a lot of time in my childhood with my nan and granddad, and the pace of life was completely different. So people did take time to communicate. People did take time to sit down and eat their meals together as a family. People did take time to stop, pause, and reflect on things.
Usually Saturday and Sunday was a weekend.
Yeah, Sundays, for example, I don't know about you, but where I grew up, there would be no shops open on Sundays.
No, yeah.
Never. Don't know about pubs because obviously I was a kid, so it wasn't really my my primary focus. But I remember Sundays, everything would be shut because Sundays would be the time when people who were religious would go to church in the morning. Those who are not religious, it would be literally a family day. And I appreciate that we now live in a world that, you know, you create your own Sundays. So it doesn't have to be Monday to Friday. You know, how you choose to work, you choose to work. But the whole point is that as long as you still choose to create your Sunday. But we don't do that anymore. We're just taking over the Saturdays and Sundays, but we haven't actually found, all right, well, we've lost this. So how are we going to replace it with? So I think it's the fact that we, as the time goes on, for each generation, everything gets faster, quicker, more convenient. Everything's at a click of our fingers. And so the need to pause or stop is, I'm not saying it's not there because it's one of the most important things, but we don't actually do that because we're so caught up in being busy that we're like, oh, I haven't got time to now take an hour to do some kind of reflection and think about my week, what my week has been like. You know, an hour, I could do so much more in an hour. It's that I personally, in my view, it's the pace. It's the fact that it's the pace, the stress, and the pressures. And the pressures, whether it's the outside world, but it's also the pressures that we actually choose to put on ourselves. That no one's holding pointing a gun to our heads and saying, you have to do it this way, and you have to do this many hours, or you have to, you know, we make those choices, but then we also, at the same time, treat ourselves as the victims of those choices, as we're the victims when we're not, because we chose that path, or we chose to do it this way. But then we make ourselves victims about it as well.
We can talk about that, but maybe another time. You know, do this episode 5 hours, but I've got an opinion about that as well. And I had a bit of confrontation on LinkedIn not long ago about exactly this fast-paced world and how people are treated and the hours that they're working. But yeah, remind me another time we're gonna have a talk about that. So.
One thing that really sort of strikes me at the moment as well is that in today's world, I think there's so many people running smaller businesses, and I think that's a big step change because before there was huge corporate employers, and sort of like towns, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world. It's a similar situation, but you would have, a small business would be a shop, and in a shop you'd have maybe 3 or 4 people, 5 people, and then there would be bigger shops. But then in industry and manufacturing, basically everyone would just go to work, and you basically be employed. Whereas I think today, and particularly I think since COVID, and I think maybe since maybe 2010 and moving forward, there are now so many small businesses and so many people running small businesses or small teams with maybe 2 or 3 people. And actually that really opens up a real need for a support network. Because if you're running a small business on your own and it's 1 or 2 people, actually you're so focused on trying to do those things, and you very rarely have that stop, reflection, someone to actually give you, have you ever done that before? No, I'm just going this. Yeah, but have you thought about doing those other things? And sometimes, one of the things I think the podcast does, when you meet an inspirational person is, as you learn about their journey, you will learn about the things that actually where they need the support, and also how they got support. And it's exactly your whole situation as you're describing to us. And obviously that need for coaches and support network today is so much stronger. And obviously particularly we talk a lot about, women in the workplace and women running their own businesses and getting that life balance right. And you're a complete example of why that is so important. And it's brilliant, Katie. It really is. And
how do you find it? How you find your clients, or how is your business journey going?
So I love networking. Again, getting back to people. I love people and I love talking to people. So all my business actually come through networking. I am, you probably noticed that I am building presence on social media, which is something 6 months ago was complete alien thing to me, but I'm learning.
You're doing brilliant.
I'm certainly learning. Zoe's been amazing, in that journey. So I'm ever so grateful for Zetsi Academy, because before I met Zoe, I literally had no idea how social media works. Don't get me wrong, I had Facebook, but I used it, the usual selfies in a pub with friends, or a couple of pictures from holidays so your friends and family can see, and you share a couple of milestones. But in terms of like using it as a business tool, absolutely didn't know how to do this. So that's been my challenge so far this year, to get into the digital networking, if you like, because the in-person networking I absolutely love, and that's what I've built my business on. And now, yes, I'm learning new skills that in terms of the social media and how to use the social media to help build that presence through social media. And I do love that. And the reason why I love coaching so much is because there is, like you said, Richard, there's the support, but the difference with coaching is that the coaching actually gives you the power. So the coaching doesn't tell you this is how you do it, this is what you do. You come up with those solutions, but coaching gives you that kind of that push for you to get into action and energy. But you ultimately come up with those solutions, and there's nothing more empowering for you to say, this is what I'm going to do, this is what how I'm going to do it, rather than me telling you, well, Richard, I think you should do it this way. I recommend you do it this way, because to me, there's nothing more powerful for you to make that decision and come to that conclusion by yourself. We create the space for you to do that. We create that, I suppose we create that pause button for you. So you get to actually go really deep and start looking for those things that are already in there. And that's the thing, that we all have it in us. And so many times I hear people say, I don't know what I want. And I love this because
that's you.
That's me. I most of my life, I knew things I enjoyed, but if someone actually genuinely asked me, what is it? What's your dream? What's your goal? I'd be like, I don't know.
Have you got an answer today?
I have now. And it's, this is the thing, it's such an incredible journey. Some people might have that vision right from the very early ages, from childhood. People like me spent 43 years figuring out what it is they want. And what happened to me was when I was sharing a lot of my journey and my story on social media as part of the network marketing, when I was selling the health and weight loss products, my cousin, who also lives in England, we reconnected a couple of years ago. I didn't even realize she was living in England. She has got her fitness business on trampolining, crazy stuff like 1,000 calories in an hour. I mean, honestly, I look at her, I think she's absolutely bonkers, but very, very inspiring lady. And she messaged me once and she said, Katie, you would make an amazing life coach. I had to Google it. I had to actually go into Google and say, well, I've never even heard of it. What is that? Life coach. So that's how the whole journey started. But as soon as I started reading up about the life coaching, I was covered with goosebumps all over the place because I felt like this is actually it. Every single time from my journey, from my professional journey, all the jobs I did had elements of it in it. And there were parts that was the reason why I enjoyed what I did, doing what I was doing. But it always felt like it's close, but not right. And it was for a complete random text message that I actually looked back and I thought, you know what, this is it. And it even goes back to me, when I said about me dancing around in my bedroom, lip singing, I have had the pleasure of delivering a couple of talks and speaking in public. So when I, as a kid, enjoyed that, it wasn't the singing or dancing, thankfully, because we didn't make a living doing that. Even kids said to me once, once I forgot, I was in a car with kids and I forgot the kids were in there and I started singing out loud and I was told, please don't ever do that again. So thankfully, that wasn't the dream. But what was the dream was actually being on the stage and talking in front of people, delivering something and bringing some kind of value to people. So even as a child, I kind of knew, but I didn't know that's what it was. Only now I look back and it all starts, everything, looking back now, everything all of a sudden makes sense. But that's the thing. Yes, but that's it. We all have to go through certain journeys. So some people may have it figured out immediately, which is fantastic. Some people like me have to go through 43, however many years of journey. Now, I think, how old was I? 2018. So 38 I was at the time. So 38, took me 38 years to discover that. And for some people, that may be 50 when they discover that. And it doesn't matter because the whole point is that as long as we enjoy because it's about not necessarily getting to the end. It's great knowing what the end is or what we want the ends to be, which is one of the books, actually, Steve Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And, it's that begin with the end in mind. But it's okay not to have it all figured out. And it is okay to actually allow yourself to go through that journey and enjoy the journey of figuring it out, because that in itself is a goal, effectively, if you like. And I always say this, if you don't know what you want, you still have a goal because your goal is to have a goal. Even so, we always have a goal. We always want something. So, yes.
Just quickly, I want to ask you about, because obviously you are a life coach, but you are trying to get a bit more talk about moms and mom guilt. And you will need to speak to people like me who very often might be full-time working, might be single moms, might be moms who they are looking after toddlers. And some of them might not be in a very good financial position, because this might be another myth about coaching. I don't know, if I must be honest, I always thought that coaching is only for CEOs because nobody can afford it. Where we met few coaches that, first of all, changed my perspective about coaching, and second, they show that that's not that luxurious and exclusive thing. Yes, some programs or some coaches, they might be specific for business leaders, but it is okay for other people as well. How is your approach and how are you finding this type of ladies? And are they, because I assume it's very difficult as well to make that step and to go and just get part of a group or, I don't know, networking that.
So for me, it was very clear from the beginning who I wanted to work with. So absolutely, I agree. There is executive coaching where, that the cost of coaching can be quite high, but then it very much depends on how we view it, because from those point of views, from those particular people who seek that coaching, like the types of CEO, for them, they look at it, it's their investment, and for them, it doesn't necessarily may seem high, but it always, it all links to what part of the journey we're on and what is the end goal. So my aim is to, exactly like you said, Mary, my aim is to work with mums and encourage mums to, for those who want to stay at home and they stay at home mums and that's their passion, I absolutely, I will cheer them on. It's not something that I need that fulfillment. For me personally, I love pursuing career as well as the motherhood. So for me, it's different. So for me, it's almost, first of all, it's encouraging all the mums, whatever it is that want to pursue, it is okay. There's no right or wrong. So if you want to be a stay-at-home mum, it's perfectly fine, because if that's what your true dream desire is, please follow it with all your heart. If you want to build business, build your career and still enjoy motherhood, do that. So it's, and I understand, because I understand who my clients are, and they might not necessarily be the CEO level, because I personally never made it to CEO level. So I want to work with someone who's relatable to me. So I could understand that those kind of clients, those mums would, yes, absolutely, financially, they could not afford the executive type coaches. And even if they could, talking about guilt, right? Whenever we, as mums, want to spend money on ourselves, the first thing you do, you think, oh my God, I could have paid kids, I could have bought kids a new pair of shoes for that. I could have taken that would be school trip money. That's mum's mentality, right? So if I'm promoting success without guilt, and then I'm going to start charging ridiculous amounts of money, the mums that I know it's going to take something away from important parts of motherhood, it's going to be very much defeating in the object. So I had to sit down and figure out, how can I make coaching accessible in a way that I can still create a sustainable business that's going to work for me, because of course, in the end of the day, it is a business.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's going to be accessible to those people that I really want to work with. And this is where I've created a membership called Success Without Guilt, which works on 3 different layers depending on people's affordability. Which first one is the very cheapest one, which is do it yourself. And I created a course from scratch, which is Success Without Guilt, with 4 different modules, which I've created it with it in mind as a 12-month kind of course, bearing in mind busy mum life.
Yeah.
But however quickly people get through the course, they could do it quicker, they could take longer than 12 months. So that's the cheap basic version. Then the upgraded version is they actually join the membership, which is on the monthly subscription. And within that, there would be that would be the online course, but with that, there would be a regular group coaching sessions, regular live Q&As, and any online workshops would be automatically for free. And then the upgraded version, again, if budget allows, is they can add some private coaching session to top it off. But we're talking from investment of £197 for the do-it-yourself course, $49.75 for the group coaching, or the personalized one is £125 a month.
Yeah.
They get an extra private group coaching session.
Which is great, and which is an opportunity for everyone, depending on their affordability,
absolutely,
to be able to do so.
And then I do have private tailored coaching packages that I could take further on. That would be for, that would be personally tailored, and that could be 6 weeks, 12 weeks, and there would be slightly different price. But that is then the level up for those who do want to, who would like to invest that a little bit more.
Yeah.
But the ones that I'm kind of advertising is mainly these 3, because exactly that, I want to make coaching accessible, and the people I want to work with, i.e. the small business owners that you've mentioned earlier, Richard, they, it's not to say they wouldn't have the funds, but I'd rather have to, if it's a case of, am I going to have the coaching at all or not? And if money is going to be the object, then I'd rather them take that first step, and then they could take on the further coaching, and they could go and leave me and go into the executive coaching, which would be amazing, because I highly encourage people as they progress in their journey. And if they do really, really well somewhere, don't stop there. Always think about your next step. Where are you going next with this? So at some point, I appreciate that they will outgrow me and they will leave me and they will go on to somewhere else. And that's when I would feel, actually, this is amazing, because I feel my job is done here. And it's then time for somebody else to take over, to take them to the next level.
The key in that is, if they have success without guilt, then you've done your job.
Absolutely. That's the biggest part. Because for me as a mum, I've looked at 2 biggest restraints that would possibly create the guilt. And for me, it was the time it was going to take away from my family, and it was money it's going to cost me. That it's going to take away again from family things that we could do with that money. So I thought, how do I eliminate those 2 objections? So time within all of these, they do it in your own pace at their own time, and the accountability is there. So it's not like they're going to get away with it.
Yeah.
So the accountability is certainly there, but it creates the flexibility in terms of the time and finances, which for me as a mum, that were two biggest blocks that I would ever experience. Exactly like you said, no, because I never looked into coaching because my ultimate was like, well, I could never afford it. There's no way I could ever afford coaching. So,
and I really like how you said investment, because that's the other big thing for me that shifted when I spoke with coaches that I like, because I need to mention that. I think we had, when we chatting, we talk about that you had the experience that to get a coach, but it was very not understanding your needs. It was a bit more what the coach wanted and needed.
It was very transactional, yes.
Which is very important as well, because not everybody, I think, you can click with or you can feel, because, I don't know, my understanding is that the coaches, you have to feel quite comfortable and open to talk to them, and as well to make you feel ready to invest, because we don't realize, but it is an investment in ourselves, and the results are coming later. So you've got a website, people, when they can find you?
Yes, so I've got a website which is www. I always have to remember because I never say the whole 3 W's. Thanks for kplifecoaching.co.uk. And yes, I'm on LinkedIn as Katie Powsey, and on Instagram as kp.lifecoaching.
And really funny and cool videos on TikTok as well.
Occasionally I brave TikTok too, yes.
Which I see. Absolutely pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Spending the time with us and telling us lots about your story. Very inspirational story. Maybe you don't realize that, but we can say I realize so much with most of your story. So yeah, thank you very much. And definitely we are about to do something as well extra. So yeah, we will sort out and let everybody know about it.
So if you want to find success without guilt, please do contact Katie. We'll put all the links below. We hope you've really enjoyed today's episode. Thank you, Katie. It's been a real pleasure. And if you're enjoying today's episode, please do give us a like. We really appreciate that. And if you're watching on YouTube, please do subscribe. And if you're watching on Spotify or listening or on Apple Podcasts, please do give us a follow. We hope you really enjoyed today's episode. We hope you have a great day, and we'll see you very soon. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye-bye.